Hi friends, Amy here. Welcome to The Activity Continues. Today we have a special treat for you. We are interviewing the clients from the most recent episode of The Dead Files. That would be season 15, episode 7. This is the Maurer family. You remember Donalyn, Dennis, and Regan. They are all joining us today for our interview. We had a great time talking about some behind-the-scenes stuff of the shooting of the Dead Files, as well as the outcome, which is not the same as what the show said. So stay tuned for that. So please enjoy our interview with the Maurer family.
They were sweet.
They were delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were a gem. But I mean, honestly, who have we talked to who has not been great?
I know all the clients we've had on have been so much fun and so cool.
They were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That was just a fun episode. I felt like it, watching it and then being able to talk to the people right afterward and be able to understand what I thought the editing, by the way, was better in this episode than it's been the rest of the season.
I agree.
And that's why I wanted to ask, did you feel like it was edited in a way that represented what you thought? There were a few areas that I thought were confusing, but
Yeah.
if people listen to the rest of the episode, they'll find out from Donalyn and Dennis how it's not as confusing.
That's right. Yeah, they cleared up some stuff that we were confused about. They told some extra stories about
Cried.
and yeah, I almost did too. That was
sweet. Yeah. They were.
I got chills when Dennis was talking about the Tuskegee Airmen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they were just really a genuine family, and I was so glad that they agreed to talk to us because I really enjoyed speaking with them.
Yeah, me too. And now I want to read some of Donalyn's books.
I know. I'm totally gonna go to Amazon and buy some.
Yeah,
because I love a good romance.
As she was talking about, if she does go into the do some ghosty type books. I do have an author that I love who does that, and she's Minnesota based, and she does. So if you've ever been to Superior Bayfields, you understand some of the places that she talks about. I think she's Minnesota based. She's either Minnesota or Wisconsin.
Is her last name Miller? I totally can't remember.
No,
Wendy Wem is who I'm talking about.
No, I know, but what's Donalyn?
Maurer. It's Maurer. And she just sent me a
MAU. Yes. Falling into Blue, a McGinty's of San Antonio series. Now, I'm reading this. Oh, it looks so cute. Yep, and it's $0 with Kindle Unlimited, which I'm a part of. So downloading that right now.
Good.
So what she sent you in an email, Amy?
It's so much fun. Thank you. XOXO.
Love them.
Sweet.
Yeah. Friends, enjoy the episode. We sure enjoy it. They're great.
They were
family.
They were great.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for agreeing to do this. We are so grateful every time people agree to talk to us. And we just watched your episode. I know it just came out. And so, we're so thankful. So first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time today to chat with us.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for having us.
So what we generally do is just let you know that what you want to share is what is the most important thing. So anything that you want to tell us about the activity in your house or about the recording of the show or about Steve's height or whatever, that's the important part.
The drone
come up.
footage.
Yes, drone usage.
Yeah.
All of it's come up.
Okay, let's just cover the drone usage first. Dennis, you can cover that. He was like, oh my God, the yard was horrible. The house had burned down next door and they had a porta potty out front. They had been working on it for 2.5 years. And he was like, oh my God. And we had a pool installed. So the yard was dug up and everything. And so when they did that drone footage, it was like, so for the man of the house, he was like, oh my God, the yard looks terrible. So.
Yeah,
I didn't notice anything.
That's not a big deal. It's just,
I honestly
it
don't
looked
think
terrible.
they use drone footage unless I'm
I
forgetting
didn't see anything
about
that
it.
looked bad. So.
I saw a lot with the car driving. I think there was there was like one shot maybe where
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it must have been a hot summer or
Yeah.
something. But having a pool put in, that would explain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We've heard before that Steve is not the biggest fan of the drone footage because they made him take a lot of retakes somewhere, and he's just like, why?
And then they don't end up using. So
Yeah, everybody was nice. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. That's what everyone says too.
Yeah, we've heard so many times that Steve is just so delightful, which is really how it comes across. Like every time we watch the show, I always have such a big soft spot for Steve because he genuinely seems to care about the people. And when he gives people hankies, it just like tears at my little heartstrings because
Well,
I'm like, who carries hankies in like 2023? But Steve Shabby does.
Yeah, I got mine. So yeah,
Oh,
he really does. I mean, it was like when you're nervous, he just kind of comes in there and sits with you. Like he ate with us, he ate dinner with us, and just lunch, and just kind of like before you were shooting and said, okay, so just talking about anything but the show, talking about where you live, the house, cars, whatever,
nice.
completely putting you at ease before you go in there. And then he really does care. And that's not a lie. When he looks concerned, he gets concerned,
Yeah.
he gets mad,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
One thing that I've noticed just watching some older episodes and then watching yours especially is with Steve, I think he's got that bullshit meter down pat, because there are some episodes where you can see and he's just kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm feeling it so much. But I didn't see that with you guys when he was talking with you, because you also kind of stated like, we've tried everything to try and figure out what's going on. And he calls
and
it out.
especially Dennis being the logical brain that Amy P is. Like, I can,
I related.
we could see him really struggling. Like, I'm trying to logically explain this away. And that's what Steve does. And so, yeah, it was just such a good episode. Like, it really was heartfelt. And the video of Dennis falling off the ladder.
How many times did we have to watch that?
I got like,
yeah, they showed it over and over. I didn't
almost a half dozen times.
We get it.
Yeah, it was really, because that day I was telling everybody that day that it happened, I had just walked outside. We were having a like Christmas movie PJ family night, and he was hanging lights. I had just walked outside. He was fine. I walked back in to do something, and I walked back outside like just seconds later to tell him I was going to go jump in the shower. And he was sitting on the bench, and I was like, hey, I'm going to take a shower. And I walked over and I just saw like blood on his head and stuff. And I said, what happened? He goes, I fell, I think. So he had he lost consciousness, came
You
out.
could see in the video.
Yeah, he was out. And then he kind of stumbled through the yard somehow. And then because we have the Nest Cam, he made it to the porch and was sitting there in a daze. He didn't even know what had happened. And when I called 911 and EMS came, they had said, do you have the Nest? Do you have footage? And that was the first time I saw it. And I was there. The EMS guy said, oh yeah, you got to go. And he was really badly hurt.
It looked like it.
Well, I know even Cindy made a comment, because so these two know, like, my brain has to go through the logic. Dennis, we're talking right now about your fall off the ladder and how many times they showed that. And I was watching.
Once would have been enough.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have rewound it and watched it, but I definitely was looking. I was like, his hands weren't even touching the ladder. Like your arms weren't even touching the ladder. And you see that leg.
You could see it.
Moves out.
Yeah.
Right.
And see, we hadn't noticed that till Steve pointed it out, and off camera, he had turned it around. He said, watch the leg. And you see that one leg. Dennis isn't moving and it's kicked out.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh, wow, this puts a whole new level on what's going on, right now.
And it was like so sudden. He couldn't even brace himself. Like, holy shit. Sorry, but
exactly.
No.
Like I told Steve, I've been on ladders thousands of times, and the ladder shifts sometimes and I can catch myself, but I didn't. My hands weren't on anything. They were up in the air. I think I was putting lights up or something.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, so when it happened, I just I had nowhere to go put 10.
Well, I mean, Dennis, the one thing that I saw that was really intriguing is because probably you've been on ladders so often, your body reacted to protect your head because you turned and really fully went down flat on your back.
Yes.
And yes, you still hit your head, but I mean, a lot of people hit shoulder head and then, have a lot more damage there rather than flat on the back, which you still had damage, obviously.
Yes. My head was bleeding, and as I mentioned, I did have some bleeding inside the brain, but but the doctor said it was just a little bit. And then, I stayed in the hospital for a couple of days, and they monitored it, and I was good to go.
Well, we're glad.
And what was weird was I had walked outside, I was going in and out, because even though he's been on a ladder and he does this on his job daily, I had been in and out. Regan had just come in. We had been going in and out, checking on him. And it was right when he was done that he was putting the last staple in. And I'm going up to take a shower. Regan walks in and it happened.
Yeah.
He was done. He was done putting up the light.
He was waiting for you.
He was waiting. And that's what it was. It's like he was done.
It was. The guy, the butcher was waiting for you guys both to be away so nobody could help him.
Yeah. I think that's true.
Scary.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so scary.
Yeah.
So speaking of the butcher, I know that Cindy talked about him a ton during her walk. And it wasn't really talked about in the reveal. Did she talk about him more during the reveal? Because we know that those reveals are hours long and they cut most of it. But how much did she talk about him in the reveal?
What they were saying was there wasn't a lot known about him other than what they did actually share on the show.
Okay.
There, he had been suspected of these dating these women to to alligators and things like that, and all this other stuff, but nothing was ever proven. And when the police went out there to question him, they weren't even going to make an arrest. They were just like, "Hey, what's going on here? These women are missing. He shot himself." And so that's really, I even looked up to see if I could research, something with it, and I couldn't find any more than what they found.
Well, and I mean, it's not like he doesn't have an uncommon name. Joseph, was it Ball or Bull?
Bull.
Okay.
Joe Bull. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I swear every time Steve said it, it sounded different in the last name did. But
the Brooklyn accent.
Yeah.
I was intrigued a little bit because it sounded like when Cindy was going through, she was talking about the butcher, but then the old man with treating Regan like his daughter that he lost. And so I was wondering if there was at times it seemed like the two of them were kind of woven together, because she was talked about, reminds me of my daughter that I lost, that you gave up and left on the side of the road.
I was just going to say, you didn't lose her, Simon.
But then she went, at least the way they edited it went straight to the butcher. And then it didn't seem like they really talked about the old man.
Yeah, they had brought up my grandfather, and he did lose a daughter.
Okay.
So he had lost a daughter. And here's another fun fact that y'all didn't get to see. So Cindy, I think on her website, she was beautiful, amazing, kind, everything.
Yeah. So glad.
She had done a personal sketch of for Regan of her protector in the house.
Oh my God.
And during they showed the picture, Cindy gave her the picture, and when they cut, I looked at Regan and I said, "That is my grandma, her great grandma."
Oh.
But they had identified her, which they cut it out as an Italian nun from the 16th century or something like that. And I said,
17th century nun.
Yeah. So I told Regan, I said, "That's grandma." And she said, "Yeah, that's grandma." So I even showed it to family members and I said, "Who does this look like?" No prompting. They said, "Oh, that's grandma." And I said, "Okay." So it was kind of nice to know that my grandmother and my grandfather were here.
I love
Yeah, but
that.
they did lose a daughter. So that was kind of confusing to me too. They lost her at birth.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I would say the way that they cut it made it look like they were trying to connect it to
The
the
butcher.
original homeowner, Simon.
Oh,
Yeah,
Simon.
yeah, I did
Yeah.
too.
Simon, who had threatened Edna to marry
5
him and
kids.
then,
Yeah.
left his 5-year-old.
Oh,
Right,
He was
Ophelia,
great. He
Ophelia.
was just a delightful person. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, we've gone to a psychic a few times with Amy, and she tells me every time that my maternal grandmother is with me, who I never met. She passed a couple months before my parents got married, and they've been married 50 years.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so she's been with me pretty much, she said, my
That's so
whole
cool.
life, which is so
Yeah.
nice to.
That is
I
nice.
recently had my great grandmother come through as one of my angels. So I was curious if there was any conversation. You said protector, if your grandfather was posted as kind of like he's one of your angels, because she said he's always with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think
No, I was just going to say, yeah, they had said that your grandfather was your protector, and for Reagan, grandma was the spirit guide, I think is what Cindy said.
Yep,
Yeah.
spirit guide. We all have
Yeah.
those. Yeah. Oh, that's
And
so
she said that
sweet.
she's always with Reagan or near Reagan. So
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that just melts my heart. I love that for you,
and she
Reagan.
said
Yeah.
And how wonderful.
she said when the butcher
That's
was
really nice.
attacking her, that my grandmother would actually or the nun, whichever you want to say, would lay over Reagan and kind of
Really?
protect her
Oh my God, I'm gonna
from the
cry.
butcher. So she would lay over her and kind of block whatever was coming at Reagan.
That's really sweet.
It is.
You know,
Oh my God.
I have to say that, before the episode came out, I kind of wondered, if, before we knew that it was coming on, if they were going to air our episode, because I thought, God, we didn't, as far as, especially my part, I didn't really offer a whole lot. And I thought, is there enough for an episode? But then when we saw the episode, I was really surprised, and it was really good, I thought, because, they had those characters that we never met. We didn't see them with, with the research that was done and everything. So it turned out really, really good. And what they showed, it was kind of a surprise also. I really wasn't sure. I knew the butcher was going to be in there, but all that other information with the plane crashes and all that stuff, I thought, wow, that's really cool, because, Steve did talk to us about his investigation and some of the things he found, and he, kind of in a sense of, well, we'll see what Cindy finds, but he talked to us about a whole array of things, so it was really, really interesting to see how it all came out on the show. It was really good.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And speaking of the way that you're talking about that leads to a question I had of how did you feel watching it with the way it was edited? Do you feel that anything that you wanted to say was left out, or something that would have made more of a connection, like we just discovered with your grandfather and grandmother losing a child at birth? Was there anything else that you felt that
Well,
was
for me,
different?
one thing I wanted to say was I was raised by my grandparents. I love them dearly. I was just an infant. So they, for all intents and purposes, that's my mom and dad.
Yep.
But I did know my birth parents because they were my paternal grandparents. And they're both wonderful, So I don't, I think one thing that bothered me when I said, he's my father, he's my dad. I do have a dad that I know today, and I want to acknowledge him as being really awesome and, stuff like that. He didn't raise me, but, we have a relationship that's beautiful and it's on itself.
Good.
So and my mom passed away. We didn't have the best relationship, me and my birth mom, but when we did other investigations, it was my mom that actually showed up that was protecting me.
Wow.
So, so she came through. So it was like me and my mom made up after her death. It was kind of like one of those things. We kind of like came to terms.
Sweet.
I can understand that, not with parents, but with a friend who has passed and having had that connection of, we're all good
That's
now.
great.
Yeah.
Love that.
So you mentioned that you had other investigations. Are you comfortable talking about what those were like and kind of the results from those?
It was so funny because the other ones we had, when things, okay, so I'll try to make it a long story short. We built the house in 2004. And when we were building, I remember seeing a news broadcast where the Native Americans in the area were suing the builder because this was considered hollowed ground and all this other stuff. And I remember telling Dennis, I don't want nothing. I saw poltergeist. I don't want anything to do with that business, leave me on. No. So it was settled. However, we ended up moving out here. We moved in 2004. Okay. And immediately for me, it was not good. I think Regan, Are you there, Regan? She had experiences. Julia had experiences. And it was just one of those things where it came to a head one night. Dennis and I had an argument. He left and went to work. Mm-hmm. And I was laying in bed and a girl appeared at the door, peeking in. She kind of leaned in like that and looked in. And I said, I'm done. We're out. We're done. Yep. Same. And that's it. Call it quits. We're done. Yeah. We're out. Lost his move. Yeah. We're done. So I told Dennis, we got to go. We got to get out of this house. And so he took an assignment to DC. So when he got the assignment, took it, we had put the house up for sale and it wouldn't sell. So we did that whole thing where we'll rent it till it sells. And so we had we're military. So we had 3 different military families renting the house that rented where they bought their own and whatever. So we lived in Virginia on a military base up there. And so when he retired and we were coming back, we still had the house. And I was like, I don't know, And so he rationalized. I said, we've had 3 different families living in there. Nobody's ever said anything about, what's going on. So we moved back in. Mm-hmm. And it just picked up where it left off. And then it intensified. And it was like one of those things, that's when I got the cameras and set them up because I would tell Dennis, something's going on in the kitchen. Yep. And I'd say, things are falling, things are doing this and that. And so I bought a camera for the kitchen. And then things started happening in the bedroom and I bought a camera for the bedroom. And I was saying, they think I'm crazy. They think I'm loony. But then I was able to show them things. And the psychic that I worked with locally, the different psychics, they didn't want to come in without team. Mm-hmm. They would be like, we'll see if we can get people together and come in, but we're not coming in again by ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, okay. And that's when somebody recommended calling the Dead Files and they'll bring in a team. Nice. Great. So that's what we did.
Okay. So the way that the show ended, as you know, it just says that you're still looking for a medium. Is that the case, or have you found somebody? Are you good? Is the house okay? What's the status on that?
Cindy, the producer called with some recommendations from Cindy, and I got in contact with one, and she was like, well, if I can find somebody to come with me, I'll come. But then she never showed up. And then another one that was in Austin, just, less than a couple 100 miles down the road. I talked to her on the phone and she told me what I needed to do. And so we talked for like an hour or so on the phone, and she just said, do these things. And if it doesn't work, I'll come down, but I think you can do it. Okay. And so I did what she said, and the house has been wonderful.
Great.
Really? It's been good. Awesome. I mean, we still have visitors, that kind of, hang about or whatever, but it's nothing anywhere close.
Not one trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah. The push is gone. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, he's gone.
Good.
And the portal is closed, right, Donna?
Yeah, I think there's still that. Like they tell me how to put a force field around the house, protection, like a cube and around myself and things. One of the things that I was measuring activity by was the camera in the bedroom. The orbs that would come through, and they'd all head to the bathroom. It was like a 5-minute deal. They'd come in from all the walls and head into the bathroom. And then at sun or sun up, they'd head out. And you could just count them.
You gotta go.
You gotta
go to work, I think.
living
You
dead.
can't stay
You gotta
here.
go potty.
I don't know where you're going, but you can't stay here. But yeah,
Yep.
and so it was one of those things where it was like I was measuring activity. I would see things or feel things at night and kind of signal the camera so I could go back and look and see if I saw something on the camera that coincided with what I felt. So
Good.
since I did that thing that Tiffany, the medium out of Austin, told me, I very
Awesome.
seldom even see one orb come through.
Good.
Great.
Good.
Oh, we're so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
love it
Everything's
when
good now.
people can
Good.
live their life with not mean spirits
Yeah.
hanging about.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so speaking of that portal, I again got a little confusion because at one point it said that Cindy was saying that somebody opened it there, but then later on she was in the kitchen. She goes, "It's here. It's under the ground," like when they were digging it. So was there anything that clarified what she was feeling? Because I'm sure it's all connected.
So there was a psychic that came in, Katrina, before her, and I had been contacted by them. They wanted to come check out the house because one of the things that I was seeing was soldiers. I kept seeing soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy, he was an investigator, and he contacted me, and he was like, I guess he worked with her, and we were kind of talking simultaneously, and she was seeing soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, "Can we come out?" And I said, "Yeah, anything, please help, you know." And so when she came out, she had told me that there was 3 different cemeteries off in the distance if the spirits were just coming to the house.
Mm-hmm.
So when Cindy came, she had said there's a portal, you know, in the kitchen, and there was another picture drawn, and it was almost like a manhole in the ground, and spirits are
Yep.
just climbing out, just one
Wow.
after the other.
Exactly how I pictured it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just standing in the kitchen about, you know, and they're coming up.
I really wish they would have shown that picture.
I wish they would have too.
So
but
there's
they
more.
said that
Do you have that picture you want to send us to maybe
I
Amy
don't
can
have
share
it. They took that.
Oh,
They
Right.
took
Oh,
that.
that took it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things is we live near caverns and an aqueduct, and our house is built
Mhm.
on limestone.
Yep.
So when they were building
All
the
records.
house, they were all conduits for whatever. So what she was saying off camera, that when they built the house, there was some type of crack in the foundation of the earth.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
these spirits are traveling through the caverns or the water or what have you, limestone, and they're coming up through the bottom of our house right into my kitchen, you know, type thing. And so when she said that, I was like, oh my God, that's what Katrina said. You know, Katrina was like, they're coming to your house, and they're coming in. Katrina had told me, and I think that's the same thing Cindy told me, the only bad person that was pointed out was the butcher. The rest of them were just
Mhm.
coming because they said, both of the people said, with Regan, Julia, and myself being in the same house, it was like
They
a
were
bright
attracted
light
to
in
you
the
for
darkness. But they're just
Mhm.
coming. So yeah, so that
Yeah,
was that. Yeah, so
I think that was Cindy's main point, was that with Donna and Reagan together, both having abilities, that really amped up this
Yeah,
portal.
Sure.
Actually opened it up, I guess.
Sure.
So that's how all the bad activity
Fun
started. Yeah.
My gosh.
good times. Yeah.
So Donna, Cindy had mentioned that you had this and passed it on. Did you have any experiences when you were little or, young?
When I was little, the only thing I remember is the night before my great grandmother had a major heart attack. I asked my like I said, my grandparents raised me. I said, I asked my grandmother, she's putting me down to sleep, and I said, would you be sad if Mama Kibido, that's what we call Mama Kibido, died? And she was like, well, not if she was in pain, So the next night she died, and she came to me and she said, what made you ask me that? And I said, I don't know. I was like, I think 5 or 6. And
Yeah.
my birth mother, I would go to my grandmother. I would stand by the phone, and she'd say, what's going on? I said, my mom's going to call. And she'd say, what? And I say, Mom, and then the phone would ring.
Oh,
So with Reagan, I have a connection with my mom, with Reagan and Julia. I have a connection. And with my mother, even though she didn't raise me, there was some weird connection between us that we kind of were on the same wavelength, and I could always predict when she would come around and when she would call. And so I never really revisited after that. But when we moved in here in 2004, other things happened, but I guess I just wrote it off as experiences anybody would have, you know,
Right.
and stuff like that. But when we moved in here and I'm waking up and like there's people standing by my bed, and I'm like, every night I'm telling my husband, I'm waiting for him to lock me up in the loony bin, because every night I'm waking him up and saying, there's a guy standing over there. And he's like, what are you talking about? You know, and I'm like, there's a guy standing over there. And he'd be like, oh, you know, and so.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Wink, wink, you know, but he was very supportive at the same time. But that was one of the things when they would come in the room at night. I didn't want to wake him up. He had to work the next day. And so I would come downstairs and I would say, well, I'll just let whatever it is follow me downstairs and let him get some sleep. But there was the instances where I was being touched inappropriately. And I remember laying there going, am I feeling what I think I'm feeling? Because I'm about to get really pissed off right now. And what they didn't show was me getting up out of bed and actually cussing the room out. And, you know, and things like that, and saying, you don't get to touch me like that. You know, I don't, you know, whatever. And so it's not like I was scared. I was mad.
Yeah.
I was past being scared. I was sleep deprived. I was mad. And, you know, and I was like, we're not doing this. I got to get some sleep. Dennis has got to get some sleep. Reagan's got to get some sleep, you know.
Yeah. I have a question for Regan. Regan, in the reveal, and answer how you feel comfortable, but in the reveal, at one point, you're like, I feel like this is my fault and it's going after my mom and my dad. And, you know, they showed that part, but you know, and I know, I'm sure Donalyn and Dennis, you both were like, no, it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
But just wanted to know how you're feeling about that, if you're still putting that weight of blame on yourself, or if you've kind of found ways to manage or work through that.
I would say after the show, my mom pretty quickly did the whole thing calling the medium and her doing the instructions of what to do. And I know that the activity decreased a lot, you know, pretty quickly after the show. So no, I don't feel as bad anymore. I mean, I do.
Good.
At the time, yes, I did, but now I think I definitely feel better about it. Since then, I've moved out of the house. So, you know, I'm just glad that they feel much more comfortable in their own home and that they're doing better now.
Good. Do you have any activity where you're at right now?
No, not really. We're good. My fiance is very, very, very rational, and he's like, nothing's ever happened to me. I'm like, okay. I've never
Next season on the Dead Files.
I know a few people. I know a few people like that, and then they go, "But I've had this, and this happen that I can't explain." But nothing's happened.
I'd say the only thing he would say that that would be different. He says he has dreams a lot more now than than before, but he's like, but nothing scary or anything.
So someone's trying to talk to him.
My husband's the same. He's like, I went on a tour, nothing happened, so they're not real. And I'm like, okay, let's maybe just calm down a bit.
That's because they're not attached to you; they're attached to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a very rational person. Also, but and I'm not sensitive. I'm not sensitive. I mean, I hear things, but but I know Donna and the girls have seen some things, you know, and I believe them. I have an open mind about it. So but for myself, you know, when I see something, even if it's weird, I just rationalize it. Even like,
Dennis, do you work in like a science or engineering field? I know you're military.
Yeah, so I'm retired military, and now I'm a commercial estimator for a glazing company or a glass company. So, but
he does with engineering. At one time he was going to be an engineer, so he does have that type of mind. Yeah, he's got that
the
brain
way that you think through.
It's so funny because
Yeah.
it was like I could show like something levitating across the room and be like, look, babe, look, see, look, it's levitating. He'd be like, well, I don't know. That could be the camera angle. And it looks like a dust particle, you know, and things like that. So it really wasn't, it didn't matter what I threw at him. You know, it was like he would come up with something. I'd be like, you know what? Forget it, you know. And so,
Yeah.
but at the same time, he never called me crazy. He just supported me like, you're crazy and I love you still, you know?
No, it's just there's a catch in our brains that tells us we have to find a logical explanation as to why it goes. So I have a science background, and I've had plenty of experiences, not quite like you two, but Dennis, I do often, and these two know with me, I'm like, well, could it have been something like this? I mean, just to play devil's advocate.
I'm the exact opposite. I will believe whatever you put in front of me.
Yeah. And I'm somewhere in between.
Amy's the middle. Yeah, she's the middle. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a flying UFO. And someone's like, it's a plate that 2 strings are attached to. And I'm like, oh, I see it now. But I'm the worst. I'm every
I'll believe anything.
Best friend.
But Regan is the hardest nut to crack, even though things are happening to her. What you didn't see off screen was that Regan and Steve were arguing.
Yes.
And
yes,
Steve
we
was like, they were going at it. And Steve was like, are you going to do this? You know, and Regan was like, well, I don't know. You know, I don't know. I don't know if I believe it. And Steve was like,
he's like, I feel like you're not taking it seriously.
You know, they were going at it. And I was like trying to rub Regan's back, like, let it go, you know? And Regan, like, she wasn't backing down. She was going to stand up. Like, if it happened to her, she was like, I'll let her tell her. Like, if something happened to her, she was
Regan's
going to
so they kept asking me.
She's the middle child.
So they kept asking me, especially when they showed like the picture. So but the stories that I told were true. Like the presence that I felt that was like really ominous and like all that stuff. That was that was true. When they showed the picture though of like, you know, me being smothered, you know, in my bed and stuff like that. You know, they kept asking me, you know, like, do you feel like you're in danger, you know? And I kept telling them, like, I was like, I've never felt like I'm in danger. Like, I've never felt like someone's out to get.
Hi, friends. Do us and yourselves a favor and check out our affiliate, 3 Spirit Drinks. They create plant-based, non-alcoholic elixirs that are cruelty-free and vegan, and they are designed to give you some of the benefits of alcohol without the hangover and other side effects. If you're looking to cut down on alcohol but still want the buzz, check them out. The link is us.3spiritdrinks.com and use the promo code TheActivityContinues for 15% off your entire order.
Hit me. I was like, I have felt a presence who's very like watchful and I'm trying to get the word, but I was like, I have felt that, but I've never felt like in fear of my life. Yeah.
An intentional.
Never felt in fear of my life. And
I love it that you went against Steve because
she did.
So they kept coming back.
And Steve was the mediator. I mean, Cindy was the mediator. She was going, I get it. You know, I get it. She's like, I have a scientific mind.
He kept coming back and he was like, well, this guy is trying to kill you. He's out for your life. Like, he was like, he's after you. And I'm like, I get what you're saying. And I was like, I'm just telling you, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say like, yeah, no, I'm in fear of my life. You know? And then he was like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't.
Good for
be
you.
forced to lie.
Stand up to Steven.
Steve.
Regan, I feel like we'd be friends.
Steve would be like, this color's purple and it's blue. And I'd be like, it's purple Steve, because he's got like that Brooklyn, like no nonsense. I'm Brooklyn, you know, kind of.
Yeah. And Cindy would be like, it's okay. Both of you. You know, it would be like, that would be Cindy. You know,
That's me.
it
That's
was like,
my role.
it's okay. Yeah. So but Cindy they were all great. I think they cared. And I was really, and one of the other things that they cut out when they said that Joe the Butcher was after Regan, I immediately said, you have to go. And I didn't mean it like you got to go because you brought Joe the Butcher. I meant like, you have to go because I didn't want her life to be in danger. Living here in the house. And for months before the showing, it haunted me. I was like, oh my God, are they going to are they going to post
They're
that?
gonna
I
look like I'm
said,
kicking my daughter out.
I was like,
you gotta
fine.
go. You gotta get out of the house. You know.
Get out.
Yeah.
Take the butcher with you.
And then
how it
Regan,
is. Yeah.
and then Regan records that and uses it for evidence against you every
Pack,
time.
pack both your bags. So yeah, but I was like really worried about that. I was like, oh my God, are they going to show that? And then they really edited it to where it was very respectful, I think, to all of us.
Mhm.
You
It
know,
was, yeah. I
It
mean, one
was
thing
great.
we will say for the show
except
is
for Dennis's fall, which they showed
They
repeatedly.
showed it a couple times too many. Yes.
4 or 5
well,
times.
can
Yes.
we?
I
Yeah,
counted.
I'm like,
I
and they
was
would
like-
show it
I was like, please don't show it anymore.
again, and I'm like, can I stop watching this poor man plummet down and get knocked unconscious? I get
Oh,
it.
my-
The first time I was watching you falling, and then after that, then I wanted to watch the ladder. So like the last time I
The
watched
ladder.
it, I was looking at the ladder the whole time. And you're falling this way, but I'm looking at the ladder to see how it's moving. Because I thought it had buckled. I thought the whole thing had buckled, but I could see it was still straight. It just went like
It
that.
was like pushed.
So I'm glad that it
Yeah.
was shown a few times, but I couldn't watch you falling off of it that much.
Oh,
It
I
was-
would have just
it's
rewound
so
it.
hard.
Yeah.
I
first time-
zoomed in on the leg because David
Mhm.
said, I guess that's what he did. He zoomed in on the one leg.
Yeah,
So
the
I
ladder
watched
leg,
Dennis. I went back a few times and I watched Dennis, what he was doing at that time. And then I expanded it and I saw where it looks like the leg is literally kicked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God. Because even when they told me that, I was still like, I don't know, and then I watched it and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It literally
Yeah.
looked like somebody was underneath or beside the ladder and
Yep.
kicked that
Kick the
leg
leg
out.
out. Yeah,
Well, and
when-
how easily that it did, because obviously your weight was dispersed equally on the step that you were on. Your legs were, you had the bend in the knees, so they weren't locked out. Like, it's not like you had the shakes or anything all of a sudden. You had I also coached, and I coached running for him, so I watched body language and stuff a lot. So that's why I'm picking up on all this. But I just watched the way that your feet were set, and then it's almost like the ladder pivots really like quick.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even pay attention to what happened to the ladder afterwards, if it was still standing or if it got kicked off to the side. But I also looked at, that's a sidewalk you're on. It's not
Yeah.
like you're on like my neighbor a couple weeks ago was blowing the leaves out of his gutter, and he was on this little A-frame ladder that was maybe 4 feet high, and he was standing up and he fell off of it because it was on uneven ground and he was on the top rung. Like, he was fine, but
Mhm.
that was uneven ground and off balance and everything that he was doing. Like, literally you could see a leg in the air when he was standing on
Yeah.
it, but yours was not.
Yeah, no.
And
I
if you do zoom in, you will see that leg. Go ahead, babe. I'm sorry.
No, I was just say the ladder was stable. I mean,
Mhm.
I was on the sidewalk there, so it's just a freak thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Dennis.
Our freak named Joe the Butcher.
Donalyn's like, we just talked ourselves into a circle
Dennis.
here.
yeah.
Exactly.
What did we
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just teasing, Dennis. Just teasing. So,
Yeah.
Donalyn, you write romance. Are you going to mix in some horror now that you've got
Yeah,
that?
you could have
I
a
mean,
ghost
I
love
think I
story.
did that already. Yeah, that's one thing that I have a book that's almost it's ready for release, and we're just in like the third round edits, and I haven't been able to do it because now I'm thinking about going in a different direction, and with not horror but more paranormal, like the red brick house at the end of the road type thing. With my experiences here, because other than what happened with Dennis and the touching and things like that, it was. And being choked, and just
Gross.
being creeped out by hearing things, your name being called or what have you.
Oh, Aiden's got that.
Yeah, it's not all negative. You know what I mean? Like, it's been, it's been quite the, people, like I tell Dennis all the time, I get a lot of soldiers, and, I'll tell Dennis, there's a soldier here, can you talk to him and pass him on, and things like that. And my son is also, he's Army, and Julia, so when I have certain instances, I've actually said, can you go up in the room and talk to this guy that's up there? Because I think he's having issues with going on. And so my whole family's been supportive. And so I do like that aspect of it, being able to help people.
Yeah.
but I don't ever see myself maybe soliciting people. But if like I had a DoorDash driver come and her dad like showed up, and I was sitting here with this DoorDash driver, and I was like, "You're gonna think I'm crazy," and and so I did this whole thing, and she had moved down here from the East Coast and inherited her dad's house and was having a lot of issues with it. And she's like, just going through, and I said, long story short, it ended up with her dad saying, tell her to go home under the bed on my side of the bed, up near the headboard and the nightstand, underneath the bed. There's something that will help her. And she says, is it papers? And I go, she said, is it money? And I said, I feel like it's papers, but I don't know if it's money. So she took my phone number and she left, and she goes, I'm going to go home right now. I'm going off and I'm going to go home. And so she texted me a picture of the Bible. She went home and she reached under where I said, and she pulled out the Bible. And her dad had the Bible underneath the bed on that side, open to a passage. I can't recall the verse or the chapter, but it was something like, don't worry, your brothers are with you, or something like that.
That's really sweet.
Yeah. So I won't go out of my way to do anything, but when something like that came in, I do like being able to help somebody like that.
For sure.
That's so cool.
She probably really appreciates that too. I mean, knowing that her dad is with her is always,
oh yeah,
nice.
He was. And he looked like Santa Claus too. And I said, I'm seeing like Santa Claus. And she pulled up a picture of her dad, and he had the rosy cheeks and the nose and everything. And so I was like, wow, that's crazy. So even for me, I'm still having a hard time not thinking I'm crazy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's still one of the, and I think with Regan, it's the same thing. Regan and I have always, when Regan was young, we would go places, and back in the day, the digital cameras with the SIM card, you took a picture, would preview on the screen.
Yep.
We would go somewhere with Regan and take a picture, and Regan would have just orbs, but she always had this one orb right here, this same size every time right here.
Probably your grandmother.
Well, I don't know if she had passed all the way back then, but she would just have hundreds of orbs around her. And so we would like test it and like switch out people, take the same position, send nothing. Yeah. But with Regan, wherever we went, she was just surrounded by orbs. Yeah. So I knew something was magical happening with her,
Yeah.
Right, Regan? You're magical?
Well, you did call her your sparkly child.
She's my unicorn.
Cute.
She did say that.
I wanted to ask Regan if you have, like Cindy was saying, that you can't just ignore your ability. You have to either hone it or turn it off. And I'm wondering if you've been able to do one or the other. Or
I guess I could say I've kind of turned it off. I don't, I haven't gone to talk to a medium or anything like that. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I'm just so incredibly busy these days. I just don't have time.
You're busy?
So, yeah. So
I don't understand.
I guess at this point, I've kind of just turned it off.
Okay. Sure.
That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I feel, and like I said in the show too, like I feel like if I did like really try and hone my abilities or really put a lot more effort into it, I kind of a little bit afraid of like what would happen.
That's understandable.
Right. So I kind of
understandable for sure.
And you don't owe it to anybody.
Yeah. Nope.
You got to do what's right for you.
Do it.
Your decision. Yeah, for sure.
However, if you pass it along, you might be able to help somebody else.
Yeah, no, I get
later in life.
Yes.
Or be able to pay attention for those signs.
True.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's one thing we were talking about. It wasn't just Regan had moved back. Regan was living on her own with her daughter and stuff like that. And when they moved back in, and so it was actually Julia was coming over all the time. So it was Regan, Julia, myself, and Marceline, Regan's daughter. So there was actually 4 of us in the same house.
Oh my
and
gosh!
So that's
a
lot of
energy.
Yeah. So one
you were
thing
like
I don't know if Regan,
to those spirits.
Yeah. So one of the things Regan had told me, I don't know if she wants to tell the story of what Marcy did when she was little, when she was on the phone with her dad.
Oh, that was so funny.
Funny,
So we were
horrifying, but okay.
well, we were FaceTiming, and so it was like me and Marcy together. We're FaceTiming our dad. We were upstairs, and in the upstairs living room, and like as she's talking to Marcus, her dad, she just randomly, she's like going in circles, like talking to him, and she like stops, and she like looks in my parents' room, and their doors are open, but their lights are off, so it's just like a pitch black, room or whatever. And she stops, she looks in there, and she's like, "Hey, do you see that guy?" And we're both like, "No."
Nope.
And then
Nope.
she was like, "Yeah." So she starts walking into the room, and she's
Holy
like, "You don't see
cow.
him?" And she has her dad on the phone, like the camera, and so she like takes the phone with her, and she just like walks into the room, like this pitch black room, and she's standing in the middle of it. I'm waiting. I'm in the living room, like
She
just
is
waiting
braver
there.
than me.
Yeah.
And she walks in there, and she's talking to her dad, and she's like, "Daddy, you don't see him? Like, you don't see that man, like, right there?" And he's like, "No, Marcy, I don't see that man right there." And then I'm kind of like laughing. I'm just like, what the heck, like whatever. And she just keeps saying it over and over again. Like, she's like, "You can't see him. He's standing right there." And he's like, "No." And he's like, "Regan, can you come get the phone?" Like, he's like, "I'm just seeing blackness, like just a black room." And so finally I was like, "Marcy," I was like, "Get out of there. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, come back over here." And she's like, "But I see him." And I was like, we're not going to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
So there's no one there.
Oh, yeah.
But,
runs in the family, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So no stranger danger is what you're saying.
Yeah, she's far braver than me.
Like, don't ever do that again.
Because I'd be like, "Oh, there's a man in there," and I'd go the other way, and she's like, "Let's investigate."
That's what I'm saying. Now, she walked in that room by herself.
Yeah.
I was like, "Go,
brave little girl."
No, she's braver than me. So I'd be like,
exactly.
"I'm done."
Oh my
Yes, he would come into Grandma and Grandpa's room at night, and say somebody was in the corner of her room. And I finally talked to her one night, and I said, but have they ever hurt you, or anything like that? She's like, no. She probably started staying in there. And I kind of figured that room is like, it's before Regan and Marcy moved in, it was an office, and it had all of Dennis's military memorabilia and some of my grandfather's stuff too. And so the desk in there is actually, the desk has got, I'm 55. The desk has got to be like 70, 80 years old. And it was my grandfather's.
Okay.
Oh,
And that's
cool.
the room. Yeah, that's the room that I would smell the cigar smoke. When I would get up in the middle of the night and walk by the office, I would smell that smoke. And so I figured it was my grandfather at his desk, or something. But I didn't want to tell her that, I was just like, I'm sure, whoever's in there, they've never hurt you. They're probably watching out for you. But of course, Grandma and Grandpa are never going to turn down snuggles with the grandbaby,
No.
So we're throwing the covers back and going, "Get in here," So, but at the other house, she's doing okay. And I did smell the smoke just a couple of nights ago. I came downstairs, and as I came down, I could smell it. And I was like, hey, Grandpa, and what was crazy, here's the crazy part that you didn't see on camera. So my grandfather chewed tobacco. He wasn't like a redneck hick or anything. Well, he was, but not like that. But he was a business guy. He was a retired military, retired civil service and everything, but he chewed tobacco, and he had this spit can, but he was very, I almost say like he was a fashionista for his time. He wore the suit, and he just always looked really great. But he chewed tobacco, and but on Sundays he would smoke a cigar or his pipe. But it was only on Sundays when I was around after they adopted me. It so happens that the day that Cindy came to do the investigation, the walkthrough
was a Sunday
that she saw him was a Sunday, and she said he lit up a cigar.
Nice.
Wow.
That's so cool. And speaking of Cindy, now we've heard in the past, at least the last few episodes, that Amy did her walk before Steve got there. Was Cindy there before or after when Steve was there?
It was after.
Well, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So here's the thing. So they came here to do the show with Amy. Okay. And then something happened and the show got postponed. So Steve had come down to do the investigation, or everybody had come down, and then everything got postponed.
Okay.
And so when I don't know how much they did that time, but then I knew they had gone on some site visit, but then later I got a call saying Cindy was going to be taking over.
Okay.
So when they came back down that time, Cindy came in cold. I mean, it's, and did the walkthrough before Steve had we hadn't done any interviews whatsoever with Steve.
Okay.
I think they were just doing like the background of the city and things like that and talking to people like that. But there had been no personal interviews done or anything like that.
Okay.
So did Amy actually come to your house or did she just come into town? Did you meet her or anything?
No,
From
we
what
didn't
I
meet Amy.
understand, yeah, we didn't meet her. Is that she came to town and came to the house, but it didn't happen type thing. I don't know everything that happened. I just, that I could be saying wrong, but it was just one of those things where I know they came and, then I got a call saying, we're going to have to postpone it. And then the next thing I knew, Cindy was taking over. So.
Okay.
It was a bummer because I really wanted to meet Amy, but I think the most important thing for Amy is doing what's important for Amy,
Right.
And she doesn't know anybody anything. She doesn't know me anything. She doesn't know Jill's health, and her health. And, I follow her and the main thing I want for her is happiness.
Yep.
So even if they never would have come to my house, even if the dead files would have been canceled and it never would have happened again, it would have been most important that I know that everybody was happy, especially Amy. I don't want anybody to get hurt or, do anything that's gonna happen. Her, she's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I guess it's the same order, right, Donna? I mean, so it's normally, so Cindy did come in that Sunday and then we did the interviews after that, right?
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
We've heard both ways on some of them, but it sounded like more and more that they were starting to do more of the walkthrough before and then Steve comes in, even though they show you being interviewed as 11 hours earlier.
No, you're right. I think Dave came in and was doing whatever he needed to do, whatever with what the producers had talked to me about or us about.
Okay.
I think they were coming in and researching all of that, and he was doing maybe sit down. They don't tell you what's going on. They just kind of say, show up and we're going to do this, so the order, but I do think you're right. I do think it was one of those things where they got our information and they started investigating that type of thing, the area. And then Cindy came in but then Steve was here, but then they did our interview.
Okay.
And then they sit down.
Did you end up having to go to a hotel or something for a night or two while Cindy was doing the walk and all that?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what the craziest part was is they had, the producer had called and said, I'm going to have you talk to Steve before we go down there. So they did a 3-way call with Steve. And he basically said, we're not going to show up with just one guy with a camera. There's going to be a lot of people in your house.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, so I still didn't get it till it happened. And there was literally 25, 30 people in my house with lights outside,
There was a lot of people. It's like 15, 20, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There was white vans up and down my street with electrical cords. I think we blew the circuit there a couple of times, and my neighbors, what the hell is going on at that house? And the producer had told me, he said, we're not going to tell anybody what's happening. So if any of your neighbors come over, we're just going to tell them we're shooting a mayonnaise commercial or something. So later I found out one of my neighbors did come over and say, hey, what's going on there? And we're shooting a mayonnaise commercial. And I was like, it literally looked like the FBI had all these bands.
Oh my God, a mayonnaise commercial. I love
and
that.
It was so cold that
you couldn't come up with a better excuse.
I would have come out with something way more elaborate. But yeah, they had the cords coming in and out of the front door. So it had been so hot before they came. And it had been 80s and 90s. And then I had told the producer, I said, Jeremy, I said, look at the weather before you come because you're coming. What was it, babe? February? Was it February, March?
Beginning of February.
Okay.
Yeah. I said, when in Texas, when it hits February, you could be playing soccer and football in your shorts in December and January, but from February and March, look at the weather because that's when we get our cold.
Okay.
And so when they got here, it was freezing. And that's why I had the shawl on because they had cords outside the door and it was
so the doors
freezing
were
inside
open?
the house.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, it was so cold.
Well, I remember thinking you looked really cute and I loved your shawl, so it worked. I mean, you looked
Thank
adorable.
you.
Yeah, I was curious as to what time of year it was shot because we know that other ones were more like September, October timeframe, which would explain why there was such a delay in the second half of the season coming out in September rather than the rest in June.
Yeah, and back to what we were wearing when Julia was going to be in the show, because they did interview Julia, my other one. And so we were sitting at the table with Jeremy, and he was like, okay, so this is what you can wear, and this is what you can't wear. And you can't wear plaid, and only one of you can wear black. So Julia, my youngest, my baby, she goes, that's me, I'm wearing black. And of course, she's the thinnest of all of us. Like, you don't get to call black. You don't get to call black. Yeah.
Sorry, vetoed.
Yeah. So, but she said, I wear black. And so Regan and I had to come up with something else to wear. But Regan's thin anyway. But for me, I'm mom seniority and the biggest of them all. So I wanted black, but I didn't get it. But then they cut Julia out completely and she was completely in black, and it was like, oh, God.
So you could have worn black. That's not fair.
You gonna hold that one over Julia for a while there?
And she moved to Colorado too. So that's one thing with Regan moving out and Marcy not being here and Julia moving to Colorado. It's just, and see, Julia's a little instigator. Let me tell you about Julia. So when we lived in Virginia, she always wanted to go to the battlefields and do all these things. And she was convinced the house was haunted. And then, but she was like, Mom, calm down. Nothing's going on at the house. And then when she moved to Colorado, she moved right by a cemetery. I'm like, you're looking for trouble, kid. But she's a lot of fun. She's a lot of fun. Yeah.
I like Julia too.
She's a lot of fun.
Dennis, I do have one question for you because I know that this kind of came up in the reveal too. And, you kind of lamented that I didn't know this was going on with Regan. And I felt like I haven't talked to my daughter a lot in the last however long it was.
Yeah.
It just broke my heart.
Yeah, that was.
You feel differently now?
I would love to talk to my girls more often, but after when the episode came out, Regan was over here and we kind of had a little watch it all together kind of party, and she saw that and she said, "No, Dad, we talk enough,"
Yeah.
But I
So what I'm hearing is Regan, call your dad.
I think we talk plenty.
Just teasing, Regan.
Yeah.
Regan's like, I'm actually going to call Les.
Yeah, no, I always want to talk to the kids more, so I don't talk to my son enough, and
He could talk to his kids every day for hours, which he does with Julia, but,
It must be a dad thing.
Oh, yeah, he's really like that. But he could talk to them every day for hours and he'd still be like, I need to talk to him more.
My dad's that
I
way
talk
too.
to my kids like once every 3 months and I'm like, wait, why are you calling me? What do you need? I'm busy,
Oh my God, you're my dad.
I'm like, why are you calling me? What do you want?
And Dennis is my mom because I talk to
Like,
my
I'm taking
mom
a nap. Leave me alone.
multiple times a day. Yeah. And I call my dad and he's like, what do you want? And I'm like, can I just talk to you? And he goes, no, what do you want? And I'm like, okay.
About $1,000 in cash, please.
I'm always like awkward. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
hey. And they're like, hey, Mom, what are you up to? I'm like, nothing. And I'm like, want to talk to your dad? And they're like, yeah, I guess,
We have a family Snapchat group going on and a family text chain, and there's a lot of memes that go back and forth, and we just have conversations and memes. My brother, sister, and parents and I. Yep.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah. We do that. We do that.
That's fun.
I don't know how people communicated before memes and
Hieroglyphics.
I don't know.
I know.
Like we had to use real words. What is this? Yeah, smoke.
Yeah.
signals.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, is there anything we haven't covered that you want to be sure our listeners and viewers know about your experience or about what's going on
or about your book coming
I
out?
what's not going on
no, I just
anymore?
well, for me, I just want to say how grateful I am, to the Dead Files and to everybody putting it all together, and really with Cindy and Steve. I mean, it was a great experience. It really was. It was awesome, and
Right.
I'm not sensitive, and I know all the stuff that was happening, but to get it all in that that 1 week, that few days period, and to get it, to see the show, kind of put it all together, it's like, oh wow, there's more than I thought was going on,
Yeah.
and that's really what I meant when I said I don't talk to
Yeah.
Regan enough, is there was more than I thought was going on.
Right.
So it was good to see it and to
Yeah.
get all that help. So that
Yeah.
was cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good.
I just wanted to say, like, when we built the house, and especially when we were putting in the pool, like I said earlier with the Poltergeist movie, I was like, we live on Comanche or Cherokee. What is it, babe? I'm sorry.
It's Comanche and
You
Apache.
said
Like
Cherokee
Comanche and
or
Apache is that area.
Comanche.
Yes, Comanche
I
and
just,
Apache.
yeah. So, Cibolo, our town, means buffalo, and so before we built the house, or the pool, I talked to an elder outside of Oklahoma, and he gave me a lot of history on the area and things like that. And I was really surprised. So that's the only thing that I really wanted to give a shout out to the Native Americans that were in this area, that their tribes are in this area, and things like that, be respectful of this land. And, that's one thing that I came to peace with because I was seeing the same Native American here repeatedly. And I kind of made peace with that here and did some things that the elder told me to do. And I just kind of still feel like for this area, after reading the history, that's one thing is like, just don't ignore that. If you move into an area that this type of battles happened and blood was shed, that you need to be respectful of that area and pay homage, honor it, and respect it, and
Absolutely.
give a shout out or prayer or whatever you got to do, to the area. And that's what we do, the incense, and we have wind chimes and everything like that out there to pay homage to the area.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great.
Building over it, not acknowledging it isn't going to make it not have happened, isn't going to make it not exist. So, Dennis, I do want to thank both you and your son for your service. Thank you so much for doing that for our country. I'm just really appreciative of you guys. So thank you so much.
It's an honor to serve. Thank you very much, though.
What branch were you in, if you don't mind my asking?
I did 31 years in the Air Force.
Okay.
And my son's in the Army. He's been in, I think, 15 years now. So
okay. Well, thank you.
So was it really interesting to find out that your house is a former airfield and there was a Tuskegee Airman that passed away not far from there? I mean,
that's really cool, actually. The Tuskegee Airmen is so I worked at Randolph for many years, and that's the Air Force base that's nearby. And so
Randolph Air Force, yeah.
So and I was a superintendent of a flying training group, and one of our squadrons was a former Tuskegee squadron. So
really,
I had that.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had that connection to Tuskegee Airmen, and to find out
that's awesome.
that one crashed and died here wasn't great, but it's
no.
The way they told the story was, I thought, very respectful and very honorable. So.
Especially because Steve was in the military, so I think he has a soft spot for that.
Steve is super cool.
He really
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
So he's really cool.
Yeah, I thought the way that they described that the spatial disorientation and just kind of talking through how your senses get thrown off, and another way for people to connect maybe is a little bit with Simone Biles when she was having some of her where she was having some of that spatial disorientation, and she was afraid she couldn't land, and that's why. So like that was a similar thing, obviously much more dire when you're in a plane and you're losing oxygen potentially.
Right. It was definitely.
It reminds me of I don't remember the exact name of it, but there was a flight school in Florida where they were going out on it was in like maybe the 70s. I'm fuzzy on the details, and they were going out for like their last flight training, and they all got lost They think it was that spatial, oh my God,
the disorientation.
thank you.
Right.
And so they all got lost, and then they sent more people out to look for them, and those people got lost too. I can't remember the name of it. I'm so sorry. I'm so vague, but it was a big, I think it's in the Bermuda Triangle or close to the Bermuda Triangle.
It's in the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah, that's a well-documented case of a whole squadron of aircraft that were launched.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's just so interesting and so heartbreaking that all of those people were lost and bless their hearts. I'm sure they thought they were doing what they could do. So it's happened. It's happened. And anyway, way to bring it down, Megan.
What did y'all see the special with Cindy Cause and Steve Shippey? Because they touch on that Bermuda Triangle airfield plane crash, the flight of whatever.
Loss of Flight 19?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
that deals with
Thank
that right
you.
there. Yeah.
There have been multiple podcasts on it, and it's an interesting. The Bermuda Triangle is interesting.
That was December 5th of 1945.
Wow.
Oh,
So I was close.
You were.
I was close.
No,
only 30
there
years
was
off.
another
It's
one
fine.
in the 70s. There was
Only
one in the
it's-
70s. It was
okay.
yeah, look at the Steve Shippey specials with Cindy Calva. There's that one.
Okay.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Donalyn, for
Validated. Finally.
only took
Very well.
38 years. Well, thank you
Yes.
again so much, everybody.
Yes. Thank you all so much for joining.
We're so grateful that you agreed. We loved your show, and we're glad that it seems to have settled for you.
Yes.
That's the most important
Yes.
thing, that you're
Yes,
able to be
thank
you.
happy
Yes.
in your home, because that's your
Yes.
safe haven. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you guys very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're
This was
welcome.
fun.
thank you.
Y'all been awesome. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Have a great rest of your day.
All right.
You
Thanks,
too.
everyone.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining. Next time we will be recapping. We're going to record in person. And we're going to watch the episode together. And then we are going to talk about it after that. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. And I don't know the name of the episode. I haven't seen that far ahead. Can you see that, Amy?
Let me check here quickly.
I guess like
Megan, do some intermittent music. Season 15, episode
Oh yeah,
Chaos in the Canyon.
Okay.
And it is Lisa and her husband pour their blood, sweat, and tears into their California home, but renovations seem to have angered a malevolent force, putting their lives in serious danger. Out of options, Lisa turns to Cindy and Steve to save her family.
because of the renovations, that always stirs them up.
Sure.
You know, I saw somebody asking about this on Cindy's. Actually, I don't know if it's this one, but they were asking about, when are you going to do the California episode? Because I went there after you did, and I definitely saw some and experienced some of the same things you did. It was on Cindy's Facebook post about the Butcher episode.
Oh. Huh.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will see if I can track down that owner. I just got lucky with Donalyn. Yeah, she had a unique name, and I Googled the name and romance author, and I found her on Facebook, and her author page on Facebook, and it had her email address, so I emailed her. So hopefully I can find Lisa and who is it? What's the guy's name?
It just says her husband.
Okay.
Chris. Oh,
Maybe I can
where
find.
did I get Chris from? I don't know.
Did it say maybe it is Chris? Maybe you just somehow know that.
Maybe.
Does it say where they are? Are they in Texas?
It just says California.
It's California. Okay. Okay. Well,
Okie dokie.
I'll try and find them.
So might as well have been like the most common name
Yeah.
Right.
in one of the biggest states.
Right.
Yep.
I'm sure I can find Lisa in California. It should be no problem. There can't be
Should be easy.
can't be that many.
No.
Yeah.
Probably no more than 5.
You're going to start your own PI business,
Yeah.
right?
If I could find her, then I should, because I've been pretty good at it. All right. We'll talk more about Friday, but have a good week.
All right. Sounds good, ladies.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Activity Continues podcast. We really appreciate you giving us your ears for a bit. Please reach out if you have a suggestion for which episode of the Dead Files we should cover next, or if you have a spooky story you'd like us to share on the show. We can be reached at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com or through our website or any of our socials. Links are all in the description of the show. Please feel free to drop us a note and say hi. And join us next time when the activity continues. The Activity Continues is produced by me, Amy, at Collected Sounds Media and is part of the independent Collected Sounds podcast network. We are also proud members of the Boo Pod network of super cool podcasts.
Nailed it.
What's up, witches?
Hi, I'm Claudia.
And I'm Jess.
And welcome to
True Crime Coven.
So I'm Claudia and I bring the true crime content. I aim to make it ethical and inclusive and as much of a safe space as possible.
And I'm Jess and I bring the ghost stories and the cryptid stories, and I like to present them in the form of a sandwich. So we go ghost story, cryptid story, and finish up with a slice of ghost story bread.
And it's always delicious. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in, then search True Crime Coven wherever you get your podcasts. And just remember to stay safe and stay spooky.